Hey everybody, Ben Nelson, the Everyday Real Estate Investor here. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the podcast. Appreciate you guys listening in, and hopefully the episodes have been helpful and encouraging and giving you a lot of tips and insights and things like that. So that's the idea. The my heart behind this and the intention, and I really want to reach a broad audience, but I just know that there's a lot of people out there that it gets really easy to make excuses, and we all have other things going on. We're busy with professional careers, we're busy with family, we want to have a life outside of work, right? But we still want to get the benefits of investing in real estate, and so that's really the goal here, is to encourage that. And you don't have to give up your professional career if you love your professional career. If you love spending time with your family, all of those things, there's different levels of investing, right? There's different levels. You can be a full time, that's great. Maybe that's a goal. But you also can be, that quote unquote everyday person that's out, working their job because they love it, or they have another business or a career or whatever, or you stay at home mom. You spend a lot of time with your kids, but you also want to invest in real estate. And hey, you can do it. You can do it, and there's ways to do it. And again, we talk to people that show that they've done it, and to encourage you and show you that it's possible, and then try to give you some shortcuts and tools and tactics and all that stuff to be able to make it happen for yourself. So with that, today I am going to talk about making your flip shine and what to do to be successful if you are in the game of flipping. Now, I will step back here really quick and say that flipping real estate, doing remodels and reselling them, buying something with the intent to improve it and then resell it, isn't necessarily investing in the truest sense of the word, because you're doing something active. However, there's an investment component to it, right? So just with that caveat that it's not maybe like true investing in the sense of the word. You're creating product, you are kind of creating a job for yourself, but your goal still is to put money and capital to work and have it come back with more. So let's dive in and let's talk about this. I'm going to kind of break this down into like do's and don'ts, essentially. So what should you do and what shouldn't you do when you are doing a flip? And a number of these things I've picked up just networking and talking to people and just the experience, but a lot of it's personal experience from my own deals and things that I've done right, things that I've done wrong, things that I've learned from doing my own projects. So with that, here we go. So let's talk about what to do, and we'll start there with the positives, right? So the first thing is huge. So do the right things in your remodel. And what I mean by that is you got to know your neighborhood. You got to know the product that you are trying to sell in the end. You have to know what kind of finishes to do. You have to know what kind of changes to make, how much to upgrade it. All of that stuff is a huge part of doing a remodel project in a flip, because if you do the wrong things, you're going to have a harder time selling it. You're not going to get as high of a return on your investment. So you want to make sure that you understand what the neighborhood, the product that you're buying, the demographics, who is your end buyer, and that way you can cater your remodel and your flip to that. You don't want to just go in and just start doing just whatever in remodel, making it nicer, but not really necessarily what the market is looking for. So you really got to know what's going to shine in that specific niche in the market. Again, whether that's first time home buyers, if it's at a higher end flip, what is it that you're going to be selling in the end, and how can you make it shine in that space? And I'll even add on to that, do it within that realm of what is normal in the market, quote unquote, right? What are other homes selling for? What do they have and all that? But try to do it a step above that, right? Try to do a little bit more, stand out in the crowd, especially as the market has, slowed a little bit here. You want to stand out in the market, and you want to be the one where if people have multiple options. For years we had, basically, here's a house, do you want it or not? I mean, it was essentially how it felt as a buyer, right? You want it or do you not want it, right? There's there just wasn't a lot of options, and so there's not inventory is still low, but it's not moving quite as quickly. Buyers can be a little bit more patient, and they do have a few more options. So you want to be the one that they pick if they're looking at multiple options, right? So do those little extra things that are going to stand out and make your product look better than the one next door. So know your audience. Okay, this kind of goes along with the first part of it, but with the extra little twist of make sure that you're doing a remodel to their taste and not to yours. It's really easy to get excited about doing a remodel and remodel it like you're going to live there, whether that's to the style of finishes, or whether that's the level of upgrades you're doing. And you really need to make sure that you're doing it to your end buyer and not to your taste, or not to what you would want if you lived there, because it may not be the same level of home that you live in. It may be a step down, it may be a step up. It really doesn't matter what you would live in. It matters what your end buyer is looking for, right? So, and they may be in alignment in some things, but they may not. So you have to make sure that your influence is based on trends and what the marketplace wants, and not what you would want if it was your house. Okay, let's move on to the finance side of it. Have a realistic budget. Wow. Okay, so simple, right? But it's really easy to not have a realistic budget. I mean, I've underestimated many times on flips. Fortunately, earlier on, before I learned that, and oh, this will only cost this much to do, and obviously, if you're shooting from the hip and you're not actually getting bids, and just more or less, if you don't know numbers for remodel, you're gonna set yourself up for failure and for underestimating your remodel costs. So have a realistic budget. Talk to contractors. Get people in there, professionals that are going to be doing the work, to give you bids. And as you get experience in remodeling, you'll get to know what those numbers look like, and you can put a pretty decent budget together that's going to be fairly accurate before you even have your contractors in. So you can walk into a property, you can kind of know what needs to get done, and what that general budget is going to look like within maybe some sort of 10% margin of error or something like that, which you can get close enough anyway. So you have to have a realistic budget. You don't want to go in and say, oh, I can do this remodel for 10 grand, right? I'm going to do this. And I see this especially when people are like, oh, I'm just going to do the work myself. And so it's not going to be that expensive. Well, couple like sidebars there. Number one, you shouldn't be doing it yourself. I understand people that, that's where you start a lot of times. That's where I started. You definitely don't want to stay there. You want to have professionals doing the work. You don't want to be giving yourself another job. Again, we're busy. We don't want to be adding more to our plate. It's enough to just manage a project, let alone actually doing the work. So you don't want to be doing that. So you have to know realistic numbers, and you have to be putting real numbers on there, and not just like, oh, I can do this for cheap because I'm going to do the work for myself, or on my own, and just get in and do this. So another piece that goes along with that is plan for the unexpected, right? So no remodel goes exactly as planned. There's always things that come up that you don't foresee, especially you start opening up walls and you start doing bigger project stuff. Even on cosmetic remodels, you're going to run into stuff, but especially if you start opening up walls and doing some bigger stuff, you have to have a contingency factor in there along with your budget. You have to plan for those unexpected things, because expect the unexpected, right? So just put a number in there, 10 or 20% added on top of your remodel budget, and just plan that you're going to spend it, and you just don't know on what yet, but it's going to get spent. Get multiple bids. Okay, bids can vary a lot, and you want to make sure that you're paying a fair price for the work that's being done. You're not getting overbilled, overcharged for the work, right? At the same time, if you get one bid and it's really, really low, it might raise some questions for you. Why is this bid so much lower than the other ones? And then you got to do your due diligence on maybe they're just really well priced, but maybe there's some reasons that that they're so low that you need to be aware of, and maybe it's a red flag. So definitely there's multiple reasons to get multiple bids. I'm not a fan of just like, pitching everybody against each other, pitting everybody against each other and trying to, get everybody down on price. I'm all for like negotiating a good deal, but, pitting everybody's numbers against each other. Find a good, get comparable numbers, find a reputable good contractor and use them and pay them fairly. Okay. So, and then that dovetails right into the last one here, which is hire true professionals. Cheap is usually cheap for a reason, and we don't want to do cheap remodels. We want to do remodels that are quality, that are stand out from the rest. Even if you're in an entry level price point, you want to be the nice house in the entry level price point, because it's going to sell that much quicker. You have quality work that you can stand behind, that was done well, and you can be proud of the product. And the other things with not hiring true professionals, you have bigger headaches. You're going to have other things you're going to deal with that just comes with hiring cheaper labor usually, and you're going to have lost time, all sorts of things that can come up, and before you know it, that savings is gone, because you spent it in lost time or dealing with things that you didn't want to deal with, or things got missed in the bid and all of that. So, there's lots of things that could go wrong. So make sure you're vetting the bids, make sure you're hiring true professionals. Everything from the remodel side of it all the way through to the sales side of it. I wouldn't say biased there, but of course, you gotta, I am a realtor, so take that for what you want, but yeah, let the professionals do their job. Your job is to manage the project, is to manage the investment. It's not to do the work. It's not to oversee the day-to-day work necessarily. It's to make sure that it gets done, and it's getting done when they said it would get done, and then, managing the professionals on the sales end, making sure that your realtor's doing your job for you. They're marketing it properly, and then let them do their job and let them maximize your return. And take that off your plate, because again, the goal isn't to do every piece of the job, because we don't want to just replace our job with another job, and we don't want to add something in that's going to just take us away from the reasons that we're doing it, right? Our family and our whatever else we want to be spending that time on. We don't want to just add a bunch more time into it. So do what you need to do, but hire the rest out. Okay. Let's talk about, actually, before I shift over to what not to do, one other thing to just always keep in mind in your remodels is this thing called, and you probably have heard of it, but the primacy and recency effect. So this has to do with like the power of persuasion, which is really what you're doing when you're selling a property, is you're trying to persuade a buyer that this is the property that they want to buy. And so what primacy and recency is primacy is what do they see first? What do they see when they first pull up to the property? What do they see as they're walking into each room? What are those first things that they see, and are they things that you want them to see? Are they things that are going to make them want and desire the property, or are they things that are going to turn them off? And this is so important, because I see people write things off as little things, and it's not that big of a deal, because it's just a front door, or it's just some dead grass in the front yard. Whatever, take whatever it is. It's one of the first things that they see, and it's just a little thing. They can do that, but they're drawing an opinion on that house as soon as they pull up to it, and you want that opinion to be like, wow, this is an amazing house. And again, as they walk into each room, wow, staging and all of that stuff and drawing emotion out is super important. So you want to make sure that you're not overlooking that. Look at it from the perspective of someone just pulling up to the front of your property, and what are you seeing? What are they going to see first, and is it what you want them to see? And if it's not, make it appealing, make it what they want to see, because that's what they're going to remember. So the other side of that is the recency effect. So what, as they're leaving, and what sticks in their mind after they've left, as the highlights, right? So the first thing they see, the last thing they see, and kind of what stands out to them, those are super important, and it's gonna be the difference maker in your returns on your project, because you're going to sell it faster, you're going to get a higher price, all of those things if you're paying attention to those little details. You can only make a first impression once, and if that first impression is poor for your property, then now you gotta spend the rest of the time that they're walking through it trying to get them to forget about that first impression. And it's a lot easier to make a really good first impression first, and now they're already of that mindset of like, wow, this is a nice property, so they might even overlook other things. But if their first initial response is, I don't know about this, and that primacy effect isn't there, now it's the other way around. Now they're going to be looking for more flaws, right? So you want to set that tone in the first impression, for sure. Okay, what not to do. Wow, I've done this one before. Don't over improve for the product or for the area. We talked a little bit about this in the do's, and that's do the right things in your remodel. So this is a don't do the wrong things, which is over or under improve for the product or the market. There's been a lot of in this with remodeling it for hey, I want this to be really nice, I want it to be this, I want it to be that. Well, it wasn't necessary in some of my projects that I did, and I felt good about the house that I turned around, but I could have done a little less, not from a quality standpoint, but just from a finish standpoint, I guess, and some different things that I didn't have to do to upgrade, and I could have done much better on the project. But you want to make sure, again, I say be a little bit a step above what's like considered normal in that market. That way you're standing out, but don't over improve it because you're not going to get the money back out of it, and don't under improve it either. You don't want to be a step. You definitely don't want to be a step below what is normal in the market. You want to be at least level with it, if not a step above. Don't cut corners in your remodel. So you can do a lower finish remodel and not as nice of a remodel. That doesn't mean you have to cut corners. That doesn't mean you have to do work that's not quality and overlook things and cover things up and things like that. Don't do that, because they're going to come up in the inspections. If they're not found there, you're going to find yourself maybe down the road having some issues with people saying, hey, I found this after I bought it, and you covered it up or whatever. I mean, just go to bed sleeping well at night knowing that you did a quality project, that you're turning stuff around, you're fixing things that need to be fixed. You're not over improving it, but you're not covering stuff up, and you're not hiding stuff, right? You gotta define the space. You gotta give people that emotional connection. You gotta make it so people can see themselves living in there. Vacant houses are very hard for people to do that. So if you're spending probably a few $1,000s staging a home for resale. Work it into your remodel budget. Work it into your budget. Know you're gonna do it. If your flip project doesn't work because of a few $1,000s of staging costs, you bought the wrong project. Okay, you're too skinny if you can't afford that additional cost, and you're probably going to get it back in resale anyway, because you're going to create that emotion for the buyer, and they're going to want it, and multiple people are probably going to want it, and so you could end up with multiple offers, and you're going to get it back. So don't cut corners in those things. Don't cut corners in your contractors. Don't cut corners in your sales professionals. Don't cut corners in your remodel. Just don't cut corners. Do quality stuff. Hire quality people. Don't go in too skinny, which I alluded to here in the previous comment. If you can't afford a few $1,000s of staging, you probably shouldn't have bought that project, because it means you went in too skinny. Now, I'm not going to get into the details at this point, but there are instances where doing a project and not making money in the short term potentially could actually make sense, depending on what kind of terms you got for the deal. So if you're able to negotiate some extremely good seller financing terms, and you're able to make it so that you can move, it's long term, low interest rate, all of that stuff, and you're able to move that and recollateralize that into another project, you don't necessarily have to make money on that one deal because now you've got this other financing that you can turn around and use on other projects. So I won't get into the nuances of that today. We'll chat about that at a later time and how some of that works. But that would be the caveat to that. Going in a little skinny, but getting something else of value out of it is fine. But if you're just turning it around and making a profit and that's all you're getting out of it, don't go in too skinny because, again, you're risking, you're putting your money out there. You want it to come back. So you need to make a good, solid return for that risk. And I see people, all the time, especially when the market's been so competitive, you go in and or if you're comparing it to a job or whatever, right? Oh man, I can turn this around. I can buy this $400,000 property and I can put $100,000 into it and I can sell it for $560 or whatever. And after sale, I'm gonna make like 25 or 30 grand. That's pretty good, right? It sounds good, but I mean, for all the work and you're probably a 6-month project and what if something goes south? It's really not as much as you think. Don't be greedy, but you want to be conservative too. You don't want to be so skinny that if something goes wrong, now you're losing money, right? That's how you go out of business, and that's how you lose your investment, and you don't want to do that. So don't go in too skinny. Don't be overly conservative, but also put some fudge factor in there and give yourself a decent return for your time and effort and for the risk that you're putting your capital at risk for, right? This is a big one. Don't overlook obvious flaws or things you'd have to explain away. A lot of people were able to offload some fairly undesirable properties that over the last few years just because the market was so tight. And buyers were overlooking a lot of things, right? Busy streets, huge trees right in the middle of driveways, like just weird floor plans, locations that were less than ideal, all sorts of stuff. But it was like, well, this is what we need to do to get into a house. So we'll just overlook this stuff. Well, as the market, is a little bit less competitive, those things become more of an issue again. So now you've got people that they're not going to overlook those things, and now you've got to explain away the field lights for the baseball field that are right in the backyard and super bright and shine on the back windows until 10 o'clock at night, or the busy road that's just got traffic going by it all throughout the day and night, and or the weird floor plan that just doesn't flow at all and is just funky. It's got a lot of that functional obsolescence going, and it's just weird. Those are things you need to pay attention to and make sure you're buying something that, again, knowing your end buyer, what are they willing to accept? And do the more you have to explain away, the more risk that there is. So you got to be looking out for that stuff. Make sure you're looking for those turnoffs, and you know what those turnoffs are, right? And that you're not buying something that has a whole list of turnoffs that people are just going to make people shy away from it, right? Don't try to squeeze every penny out of one deal. Price it right, get it done, and get it sold, and move on to the next one. It's really, really easy to try to say, well, I could probably squeak another 10 grand out of this if I, do this. And this goes on the sales side with pricing it and with the remodel side. So you have to consider that you might have a range of buyers, right? That could buy this. And that's a little lower end remodel. And here's what that's going to take to do it. Here's a little higher end remodel, and here's what that's going to take to do it. And maybe the higher end remodel is going to take longer to do, and it's going to be more of a hassle, and you're adding some more risk now. And then you have to price it on the higher end, and all of those things that can, maybe you'll make a little bit extra money, but is that extra 10 grand or 15 grand or 20 or whatever it is it worth that extra risk, that extra time, that extra effort, pricing it on the high end versus just pricing it, very competitively and getting, good buyers coming on it quickly and selling it quickly versus it lingering on the market. Those are all things you have to consider. So, and I've learned that in my remodels too, and some of those ones that I did. It's like, hey, okay, yeah, I made a little extra money, but like I also took 2 extra months to remodel it for that extra money. Was that worth it? I should have just done this instead and sold it, within 30 or 45 days instead of 4 or 5 months. So yeah, I made extra money, but for the extra time and effort and risk, not enough to make it worth it, right? Um, I've done this one too. Um, don't put it on the market too soon. It is super tempting when you are paying on a loan or you're just anxious to get the home on the market, to put the home on the market before it is ready. Do not do it. It is tempting. Oh, we'll just start to get interest. We'll start to gauge interest and people will come back. No, they won't. You want to hit the market at your best when everything's dialed in, when you're all staged, when everything looks amazing. Again, we're talking the primacy effect, right? So somebody sees it first go on the market and it's like, yeah, it's fine, it's okay. They might even see what you're trying to do with it, but it's too late at that point. You've already made your impression. You want that first impression to be the very best impression that you can possibly have with your property. So wait the extra week or 2 weeks or whatever it is, get it completely dialed in, get it shined up and ready to show, and give yourself the best opportunity to set the best first impression and get that initial flurry of activity versus just kind of throwing it out there and testing it and saying, oh well, I can always we'll update it when it's ready and we're just going to start gauging interest. It sounds good, but it doesn't actually work, and you're just shooting yourself in the foot. It's kind of the same thing along the same lines of as a seller saying, well, hey, we'll just price high. We'll price high. We can always come down. If you price too high, I can all but guarantee that you're going to sell it for less than you would have if you would have just priced it competitively in the first place, because you become old news and you become, people just, it's overpriced. They don't want to look, and now you're old news on the market, and now you're chasing that down, and you're going to end up at a lower price than what if you would have just started at a reasonable price to begin with. So the whole, we'll gauge interest and then we'll just put it up for real in 2 weeks or whatever, or we're going to price it high and then we can always come down. Like those strategies are not sound. They don't work. So don't do it. And the last thing is, don't try to save money by doing the work. And that goes for the remodel, that goes for the sales end, that goes for any of it. Honestly, if you're trying to save money in those areas, and usually it's because you have to make the deal work, you shouldn't have bought the property in the first place. It wasn't a project worth doing if you are, the only way that it works is by not hiring professionals. Again, with the caveat of if there's some crazy amazing terms behind it, and you're it's a one step of multiple steps in some other bigger strategy, for just a single flip that you're turning around. It just is not worth going in and trying to save money on those things. You're going to end up actually probably losing more than you think, because your contractors are going to get the work done better. They're going to get it done more quickly. You're going to spend less time on it, which means less money especially if you're paying for debt on the project. Same goes for hiring your professionals, your real estate professional to sell it for you. They know how to market it. They know the market. They know how to push it out there and do the marketing. If they're just throwing a sign in the yard, if that's what you feel like your realtor is doing, by the way, you need to get a different realtor. And you need to maybe, if that's what you think all realtors do, you need to probably change your perspective on that, honestly. As obviously, again, that's coming as a realtor, but there are some realtors that are, it's like anything. It's like contractors, it's like anything, right? That they just throw a sign in the yard and put it on the MLS and hope for the best, right? And then there's realtors that really, really push the marketing and have lists of buyers and know how to get the word out and get it as much exposure as possible. And those are the realtors that you want to be working with. So again, if you're trying to save the money there, you need to re-look at your your strategy and how you're going about this, and you really need to factor those costs in. And the other thing is with these is, even if you are going to do some of this yourself and you enjoy it or whatever, you need to consider the what if of what if, okay, I'm going to go in, I'm going to do the work, I'm going to make this extra profit because I'm doing the work. So two things here. So number one, factor in your time. So you should make money for the time that you spend on the project, but you should also make a return for the investment. So separate those, make sure that you're making money for your time, and then you're also making a return that's worth it on top of that. Don't lump them together, because that's how it makes it look like you're making more than you actually are. You make $40,000 on a project, but you were there every single day for 6 months. Plus you put a bunch of capital at risk. You got to separate those things out and look at them separately and see what you're actually, because realistically you probably made your time, money for your time in that scenario, but you actually didn't make any return on your investment. So your time is more valuable. You're gonna have better results with hiring professionals, and you're gonna get the return back if you hire the right people. Oh, and that's where I was going with that. Sorry, got sidetracked. You have to account for the what if, which is, what if something happens to you and you can't show up on the job site and you need to hire professionals. Well, now if you've only penciled it with it only works if I do all the work, now you're in big trouble, because now you have to hire professionals. You don't have a choice, and you have to have that as a what if. You have to be able to hire people to do the job, even if you do plan on doing some of it yourself, in case something does happen. So that's what I got for you for today for your flips. Hopefully that is helpful to everyone out there. I like doing flips. I've done quite a few of them. It's always fun to see the beginning and then the end product, and I like taking ugly things and making them pretty, right? And having something you can be proud of. And in the middle of it sometimes it's not fun, and you're like, why do I do this? But at the end, it's like, okay, this is really cool, and I took this really poor piece of property and I turned it into something that I can put back on the market. It's quality for somebody. You're improving the neighborhood and the market and all of that stuff. So I enjoy it. I think there's it should be a piece of your business maybe. Again, you're creating inventory. You're not investing. You're not doing something that's long term and creating recurring income for you and all that stuff. So do it, create income, but then turn around and put that back to work in some of your long term hold stuff. That's my favorite way to do it, is to create capital and some of these shorter term deals, and then turn around and redeploy that capital into longer term investments. So thanks again for listening. Ben Nelson, the Everyday Real Estate Investor here. Feel free to reach out. I'd love to chat and connect and hear more about what you're doing. And until next time, make it a great rest of the day.